How's everybody doing? Good afternoon. As the word suggests, unshittifying experiences. Let me take a moment where every marketer knows too well. I was in a boardroom in New York for a telecom brand, quarterly review, the kind where the KPIs, the key performance indicators, behave. The revenue on ad spend is up, the cost per acquisition is down, and then my phone buzzes. It was a screenshot from a customer, a direct message. They had a truly soul-crushing experience, and the truth hit me harder. On the big screen, we were winning, but on the small screen, we were losing the plot. Show of the hands of here who has seen some amazing ads in the television or in the space, but when it comes down to actually using them, they're completely terrible. Anybody? Exactly, myself included. Welcome to the age of Enshittification. Yes, Enshittification is a word as of Oxford 2024. Dr. coined it and called the process by which the online services degrade over time due to the short-term monetization gains. And it starts with a critique of a tech platform, but now it is used for the brand experiences as well. We trade the brand promise for a quick and cheap conversions, forgetting what the experience really matters is actually happens after the conversion. We go after the leads, but we forget about what happens when the customer actually changes. So every shitty experience is a marketing problem, whether it's paid, unpaid, or not. And that we have to stop treating a bad experience into a marketing failure. And you can see this graph as it actually shows, as of 2024, the customer experience is an all-time low, according to the Forrester. And this decline is actually really letting you lose your customers. Let me share something other data. 32% of your customers will abandon even if they love with the one bad experience. 39% is a decline in your brand equity. And if and only if you improved it by just 2% and retained your customers, understood your customers, you are actually likely to have them. 75% of them are going to be retained. And that is how much it is so important. But rarely, we spend 80 to 90% we spend on the marketing budgets, on the advertising, but we don't spend the money on the CX and improving the customer experience. Why does this keep happening? Because the funnels is easy to measure. Impressions, clicks, KPIs, all of that stuff is very easy to measure. But trust, loyalty, feelings, nuanced is messy. So it's not dashboard friendly. This was actually a concept we had, recently delivered in Cannes 2025 this year at France, and where they were actually talking about how customer experience is actually impacting the business from an all-time low. And I am here to take the conversation forward with my lens, a woman of color, a go-to-market strategist, as a fractional CMO with 20 years of experience connecting the marketing dashboard to every customer touch point, because I do not want to no longer ignore the disconnect. This unshittifying experience is not just a customer service problem, but it is also a leadership responsibility. What you need to be actually doing is, before we do any kind of marketing, you need to understand how do we get the customers before you even start thinking about that? How do we want them to make them feel? Let's start thinking from that. A massive campaign recently spends millions of dollars in the United States for a celebrity campaign. And as we talked about this recently, but they fail to actually manage and market their customer experience, their customer service, their sales team, their sales enablement tools. Nothing of that sort was sorted through. And that's the reason why I had that screenshot in my hand with a truly terrible, shitty experience. And that's something we need to really work on, and is a very big marketing problem at this point of time. It is a leadership mandate. So let me rewind and share what gives me that authority. It was never, before this 20 years of experience, it never gave me that authority. How did I am in the room in New York City, in the boardroom, in the Madison Avenue? As my introduction said, I grew up in a small town, Allahabad, now called Prayagraj, in a small town with a family of engineers, doctors, and officers, and government officers. People who trusted linear paths, respectable degrees, and something that we had when people sat on the dinner table is like, what is it that you actually wanted to do? My dad would sit down and actually work on the machines and would be thinking about, let's fix the machines. But I would spend my narratives fixing the stories. I would actually go to any kind of events or even kitty parties with my mom to see how badly the event was organized. How do we fix what people are thinking? How do we actually ask, why are they behaving? How are they experiencing certain things? But what was happening is that I wanted to build experiences. My family was completely at loss in terms of how and what do you make a career out of it. In fact, they kind of actually almost said it. Do you want to be into movies? What is this thing that you would keep talking about experiences? How do you build a career out of it? And how do you actually take this forward? The teenager in me had no idea. And of course, in the small town, this is what we are exposed to. So one day, actually, I was in this very town, Mumbai, that actually was where I got the most biggest revelation. As a dutiful daughter, attending one of the engineering college tours, I heard Piyush Pandey. Now, Piyush Pandey, many of you may not know, he's the chief creative officer, no longer now, of Ogilvy Worldwide, and he's the man behind the Cadbury's, all the Cadbury's ad that you see recently. His talk was talking about magic, responsibility of storytelling, the power of emotion, and this was the first time in a very long time I felt that I was heard at the dinner table. Oh my God, somebody understood me. Of course, the hustler in me went right straight to the backstage and actually spoke to him, and it's like, oh my God, I want to do what you have done. Can I get into this career? What is happening? And he said, to be a great storyteller, you need to keep the child alive in you. And here you guys are actually at the brim of your career and you're deciding what it takes. Something I would encourage is actually step out of your comfort zone and ask those difficult questions for yourself. Now, the good news that I was right. I actually felt that yes, I'm being heard and I'm being seen. But the bad news is that I didn't know how to make a career out of it. Advertising industry or ad films is not a career, at least back in the early 2000s we were talking about. So I did the wildest thing. I moved to United States. And then understanding human emotions wasn't a real career. So I made a strategic choice of moving to US and starting to build my network. What happened is I had no connections, no network, no real, actually a proper working visa to really be working there. And when I landed there, the only thing that I had is I did not need a visa to network. I did not need somebody's permission to enter into a room. But what I did have is humility, hunger, and the audacity to walk into every room as if I belonged there. And remember, there was no LinkedIn, there was no Instagram, there was no DM, there was no collab, there was no algorithm pushing me down there to their face and saying, oh, I'm the influencer. No. But in communities, you weren't even invited. I was actually there. And I had, in 1 year, built up my own ecosystem. event planners, to restaurant owners, to everybody, I was present. One day, I would be actually meeting with Padma Lakshmi and doing her interview. The other day, I would be meeting Mindy Kaling, or I would be actually meeting Sadhguru and launching his Tennessee event. What it actually got me is not because I was famous, but because I was present. What I earned and learned is not in a classroom. I learned in green rooms, in studios, in kitchens, in street corners. And I learned that before you can lead a market, you need to understand communities. You need to understand the culture first. And that's when one of the biggest advertising person actually came up to me and said, hey, why don't you come and join and start working for us? You actually can really deliver some of the strategies that don't even understand, that have actually delivered from a traditional textbooks. So I started working, and soon it was from South Asian film festivals to launching Manish Malhotra in New York, to actually doing the New York Fashion Week, to launching Vikas Khanna, to launching Shah Rukh Khan's book in New York. It actually all started opening up the doors. And there, I had no blueprint, but what I had is the road that I had taken, which was less traveled by. So what it taught me is something that you have to start to believe in yourself and start moving with the journey and the mindset to be able to feel and pursue the career that you're looking for. Fast forward now, 6 years ago, I joined as the managing director of Ogilvy, New York, leading global campaigns across North America, South Africa, Brussels, Argentina, managing clients like Verizon, Formula One, FIFA, and the stakes are super high, super high. And in every board meeting, in every room, people turn and say, what's the customer story? How are we connecting the dots? How do we personalize? And all eyes turn to me. So personally, the immigrant in me, the outsider in me, the bug in the engineered and a perfect family realized that, hey, everything I was taught to minimize was precisely what has made me valuable. Years later, the same Piyush Pandey that actually advised me is somebody that I actually collaborated with and actually launched a campaign and was awarded 2025 Cannes award this year for the gold. So what I'm trying to tell here is the feelings is your formula. If you feel the gut and your itch that is actually asking for it, please go for it. Make sure you are building your network. And I think it has been said multiple times in multiple Instagrams or DMs, is your network is your net worth. No, every connection holds value. I never knew that the same Piyush Pandey that will be actually giving me the speech and the lighting in there will be the one that I will be collaborating. So now, as I enter the next chapter of my life, where I am now starting to build GXO Studio, the Global Executive Officer Studio, which is trying to build, as a fractional CMO, connecting all the marketing ecosystems. I've realized that in a world where everyone has the same tools and same tech, your story is your competitive advantage. Efficiency can be driven by tons of performance campaigns, but effectiveness gets loyalty. Most brands don't have a performance problem. And yes, as a paid marketing expert, I can take all of your media dollars and spend it, but that's super easy. But as I said, you need to get your house in order. Spending money on advertising is super easy, but making sure that your campaigns, your website, your SEO, your SEM, your Instagram, your Facebook, all of that stuff is actually connected into a complete story and ecosystem. And that is what I'm building at GXO. I'm building a connected ecosystem because velocity at every touch point, it's about connections. And if I have to leave you with three things, it is about the 3 V's: the voice, visibility, and velocity. That is the backbone of GXO. Bridging brand to demand, turning disconnected tactics into a connected ecosystem. So what does voice mean? Voice is something that how do you actually communicate, whether you are challenging your brand, yourself, you're listening to it, and also how are you actually communicating in terms of how is it resonating with your audiences. Don't be the kid on the block which is stomping for attention. I mean, tons of times I see advertising that is like so much loud and out there that you have not understood and invested the time of what does a brand need from an audience's perspective. Visibility is not about impressions, but it's about the intentions. Being seen by your audience, your team, finally yourself is the visibility. Yes, of course, you all want to be on the social media, but what does that mean from a storytelling perspective is super important. Unless you have connected with yourself on terms of what your voice represents, you are not going to be able to communicate from a visibility perspective. And finally, velocity is not just speed, but it's alignment with your story, with your data, with your experience. And these 3 V's help leaders stop chasing tactics. They make them more building experiences. They actually grow with them. So it will belong, so if the future belongs to the brand that with the clearest voice, the boldest visibility, and the most aligned velocity. But funnels may sell the first product, but feelings sell the next 10. And that's all I have to offer right now. And thank you so much, Shruti Devari.